The day the future stopped. The car moves slowly through the street. People smile. Cameras flash. A nation feels safe. Then a loud crack tears the air apart. The president falls. A scream breaks the silence. History freezes. In that single moment, the world learns something frightening. Power does not protect you from fate. The United States, the most powerful nation on earth, is brought to its knees by one sudden act. Who pulled the trigger? Why did it happen? And how did this country, born from hope and freedom, reach a moment like this? The answer does not begin with a gun. It begins with a land that already had a past. Long before flags, borders, or presidents, the land breathed freely. Rivers ran wide and clean. Forests covered hills like endless oceans of green. Animals moved in great herds. The sky felt closer to the earth. People lived here. Not one people, but many. Hundreds of native nations filled the land from coast to coast. Each had its own language, stories, and rules. Some built cities of earth and stone. Others followed the seasons, hunting and farming in balance with nature. They did not see land as something to own. They saw it as something to protect. Children learned the paths of animals. Elders passed down stories that warned of greed and pride. Life was not easy, but it was deeply connected. Then, far away across the ocean, kings and queens looked west. They wanted gold. They wanted power. They wanted more. Ships were built strong enough to cross the unknown sea. Men left their homes chasing dreams of riches and glory. They believed the land ahead was empty. They were wrong. The ships arrived like strange beasts on the water. When Europeans stepped onto the shore, both sides stared in silence. Skin, clothes, weapons, all unfamiliar. Curiosity mixed with fear. At first, there were gifts. Food was shared. Words were traded with hands and smiles. But danger came without warning. Diseases traveled with the newcomers. Illness spread fast through villages that had never known it. Smallpox, measles, and flu moved silently, killing entire communities. Fires burned low. Songs stopped. Whole nations vanished without a single battle. Some settlers felt shock. Some felt guilt. Many saw opportunity. With fewer people to resist, land became easier to take. As years passed, settlements grew. Trees fell. Roads cut through sacred ground. Farms replaced forests. When native nations resisted, violence followed. Treaties were signed, then broken. Promises were made, then forgotten. The land changed hands, but it never forgot. Along the eastern coast, 13 colonies took shape. Life was hard. Winters were cold. Food was scarce. But hope was strong. Families built homes. Towns rose from dirt. Churches and schools appeared. Yet these people were not free. A king across the ocean ruled them. His laws decided what they could buy and sell. His taxes drained their hard-earned money. His soldiers enforced order. At first, many accepted it. Being part of a great empire felt safe. Then the rules tightened. Taxes rose without warning. Ships were searched. Protests were crushed. Soldiers slept in private homes. People began to whisper in dark rooms. Why should a king who never walked their streets control their lives? Pamphlets spread ideas like fire. Words such as rights, liberty, and freedom filled the air. The king answered with force. Ports were closed. Leaders were arrested. Fear spread. The colonies stood at the edge of rebellion. In quiet towns, soldiers faced farmers with muskets and shaking hands. No one knows who fired first. But once the shot rang out, there was no turning back. Fathers became fighters. Teen boys marched into danger. Mothers waited in fear. The British Army was powerful and trained. The colonists were not. But the colonists believed something dangerous. They believed freedom was worth dying for. In 1776, brave men gathered and wrote words that could destroy them if they failed. They declared independence from the strongest empire on earth. They signed knowing it could mean death. The war was long and cruel. Winters froze bodies and hope. Hunger broke spirits. Many gave up. But against all odds, the colonies survived. In 1783, the impossible happened. They won. A new nation was born. The United States celebrated freedom. Bells rang. Fireworks lit the sky. But the dream was incomplete. Millions were enslaved. Native nations were pushed away. Women had no voice. Power rested in the hands of a few. The founders argued fiercely. How much power should leaders have? Who should vote? What rights mattered most? They wrote a constitution, hoping words could hold the nation together. But even as the ink dried, cracks appeared. The nation pushed west. Land was taken by force and broken promises. Native families were marched away from their homes. Many died on the journey. This suffering was called progress, and it left deep scars. In the South, wealth grew from cotton and chains. Men, women, and children were owned, bought, and sold. Families were torn apart. Pain became normal. Some defended it. Some feared change. Others fought against it. The nation argued louder with each passing year. North versus South. Freedom versus profit. Compromises delayed the fight, but could not stop it. In 1861, the country split. The Civil War began. Cities burned. Fields turned red. Brothers fought brothers. Over 500,000 lives were lost. At the center stood a quiet man with heavy eyes. Abraham Lincoln spoke of unity. He spoke of ending slavery. He spoke of healing. When the war ended, slavery was abolished. The nation survived, but peace was fragile. Celebration filled the streets. Then, in one night, everything changed. In a theater, a gun fired. Abraham Lincoln was dead. The nation cried in shock. If the man who saved the country could be killed so easily, what did that mean for the future? Rebuilding began, but hope faded quickly. Freed people were promised equality, then pushed back into fear. Laws changed, but power did not. The dream of freedom dimmed. Factories rose. Railroads crossed the land. Cities grew tall. America became rich and strong. But beneath the progress, old wounds stayed open. Power gathered. Voices were ignored. Secrets grew. The United States became a world force. Its leaders spoke of democracy and peace. Its enemies watched closely. And then, in 1963, the past returned. A president rode through Dallas. The crowd smiled. The cameras rolled. A gunshot echoed. And in that moment, a terrible truth came into focus. This nation had always carried a shadow, from stolen land, broken promises, and bloodshed hidden beneath progress. And now, that shadow was stepping into the light. Because what followed would not just change America, it would change the world. The war was over, but the noise did not stop. Across the United States, hammers struck wood. Trains screamed across iron rails. Smoke rose from new factories like dark clouds that never moved. Cities grew fast, too fast. Streets filled with people chasing work, food, and hope. America was changing. Small towns became crowded cities. Rivers that once ran clear turned dark with waste. Children worked long hours. Men slept beside machines. Women stitched clothes until their fingers bled. The nation was rich, but not for everyone. New money created new power. Factory owners grew wealthy while workers stayed poor. Laws favored the strong. The weak were told to endure. Immigrants arrived by the millions. They came from Europe, Asia, and beyond. They brought dreams and fear in equal measure. Some were welcomed. Many were not. They were packed into tight neighborhoods. Languages mixed. Cultures clashed. Tension grew. America promised opportunity, but it also delivered struggle. And beneath the noise of progress, something dangerous was forming. While cities rose in the east, the west was being swallowed. The government promised land to settlers. Gold was discovered. Railroads cut across plains and mountains. Wagon trails stretched toward the horizon. For many, the West meant freedom. For native nations, it meant loss. Treaties were signed and broken again. Soldiers forced families from their homes. Children were sent to schools where their language was forbidden. Traditions were punished. Buffalo herds were destroyed, not by accident, but on purpose. Hunger followed. Some resisted. Some fled. Many died. History books called it expansion, but the land remembered it as conquest. By the late 1800s, America shined on the outside. Tall buildings. Fancy homes. Wealth flowed through the hands of a few powerful men. They controlled steel, oil, railroads, and banks. Some said they built the nation. Others said they owned it. Behind closed doors, deals were made. Prices were fixed. Competition was crushed. Workers who spoke up were fired, or worse. Strikes filled the streets. Police clashed with laborers. Blood was spilled in the name of profit. The country looked strong, but it was deeply divided. As America grew richer, it looked beyond its borders. In 1898, war broke out with Spain. The fight was short, but the result was huge. The United States gained control of distant lands. For the first time, America was an empire. Some cheered. Others warned of danger. Could a nation built on freedom rule others without losing its soul? The question lingered. In 1917, the world was already on fire. Europe was locked in a brutal war. At first, America stayed out. But ships were sunk. Lives were lost. Pressure grew. Then America entered World War I. Young men crossed the ocean to fight in muddy trenches. The sound of guns never stopped. Fear became daily life. When the war ended, the world was broken. America emerged stronger, but changed. The government had gained new power. Surveillance grew. Dissent was punished. Fear of outsiders spread. Peace had a cost. Music filled clubs. Cars rolled down new roads. Money flowed freely. The future looked bright. But beneath the joy, cracks widened. Banks gambled with savings. Stocks soared without reason. Debt piled high. Then, in 1929, everything collapsed. And once again, the nation was pulled into a war that would change everything. But what America would become after this war, no one could yet imagine. The morning was calm. Sailors laughed. Birds flew low over the water. The sun reflected softly on metal ships resting in the harbor. Then the sky broke open. Planes screamed out of the clouds. Explosions ripped through steel. Fire spread across the water. Smoke swallowed the sky. Pearl Harbor was under attack. In minutes, ships burned. Men jumped into oil-covered water. The sound of bombs drowned out screams. America was no longer watching the war. America was inside it. The next day, the nation stood united in shock and anger. Congress declared war. Millions of young men lined up to fight. Factories shifted overnight from cars to tanks, from radios to weapons. The country moved as one. But unity came with fear. As soldiers left for distant battlefields, fear settled inside America's own borders. The government looked inward. The war was being fought overseas, but freedom was being tested at home. America's factories worked day and night. Women took jobs once closed to them. They built planes, ships, and weapons. Posters called them heroes. Across the ocean, soldiers fought in deserts, forests, and frozen fields. Battles were long and brutal. Loss became routine. In Europe, American forces joined allies against Nazi Germany. They landed on beaches under heavy fire. They pushed through ruined cities and broken towns. In the Pacific, the fight was even harsher. Islands were taken inch by inch. The jungle swallowed bodies and hope alike. War demanded everything, and it was not finished. While battles raged, something secret was growing in the shadows. Scientists worked behind locked doors. Guards watched closely. Papers were burned after reading. The government feared that enemies were racing to build a weapon unlike any before. A weapon that could end wars instantly. The project consumed massive resources and brilliant minds. Very few knew the truth. Then, in August 1945, the secret was revealed. A single bomb was dropped. A city disappeared. The power released was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Japan surrendered. The war ended. But the world would never be the same. America had won, but at a terrible cost. The soldiers came home. Parades filled the streets. Families reunited. The nation celebrated peace. America stood stronger than ever before. Its cities were untouched. Its economy boomed. Its military power was unmatched. The United States became a superpower. But victory brought new fear. Across the world, another power rose, the Soviet Union. Former allies became rivals overnight. Trust vanished. Suspicion took its place. The Cold War began. There were no front lines, only secrets, spies, and threats. People practiced hiding under desks. Sirens warned of nuclear attack. Maps showed circles of destruction. Children learned that the world could end in minutes. The government searched for enemies within. Accusations flew. Careers were destroyed. Fear ruled again. Some warned that freedom was being sacrificed. Others believed fear was necessary. America was powerful, but uneasy, and the tension kept growing. While America claimed to defend freedom worldwide, many at home still lived without it. Black Americans faced segregation, violence, and unfair laws. They were promised equality, but denied it daily. Then, courage rose. People marched. They sat in silence. They faced dogs, fire hoses, and prison. Leaders spoke with calm strength and brave words. They asked for justice, not revenge. Change came slowly. Laws shifted. Barriers fell. But the fight was not over. In 1962, the world held its breath. Missiles were found in Cuba, pointed at American cities. War felt close enough to touch. Leaders argued behind closed doors. One wrong move could end everything. For days, the world waited. Then, at the last moment, disaster was avoided. The crisis passed, but the lesson remained. The world was fragile, and America stood at its center. Just 1 year later, in Dallas, Texas, a president rode through cheering crowds. The future felt hopeful. Then the gunshot rang out. The leader was dead. Questions flooded the nation. Investigations began. Answers felt incomplete. Trust cracked. People wondered what they were not being told. The shadow returned. America had risen from colonies to superpower. It had survived wars, division, and fear. But now, the people began to ask a dangerous question. Was the nation still guided by its original promise? Or had power, fear, and secrets changed it forever? The answer was not clear. And what came next? Wars without clear endings, scandals, protests, and deep division would test the United States more than ever before. Because the greatest danger was no longer outside its borders. It was inside. The jungle was thick and loud. Rain fell hard. Leaves shook with every step. Young soldiers moved slowly, afraid of what they could not see. This was Vietnam. America had entered another war, this time to stop the spread of an enemy idea. Leaders promised it would be quick. They promised victory. But the war did not make sense. There were no clear battle lines. Villages changed sides overnight. The enemy blended into the land. Every step forward felt like 2 steps back. Back home, families watched the war on television for the first time. They saw burning villages. They saw body bags. They saw young faces that would never come home. Questions grew louder. Why are we here? Who is this war really for? And why does victory feel impossible? Protests filled the streets. Students marched. Parents cried. Trust in leaders began to break. When America finally left Vietnam, it did not feel like peace. It felt like defeat. And something inside the nation snapped. Not long after the war, another shock hit the country. It started quietly. A break-in. A hotel. A strange cover-up. At first, it seemed small. Then reporters kept digging. Documents appeared. Recordings surfaced. Lies stacked on top of lies. The President of the United States was caught hiding the truth. For the first time in history, a president resigned in shame. The nation watched in disbelief. If the highest office could lie, who could be trusted? Faith in government fell to its lowest point. People became suspicious. Every promise sounded hollow. America was powerful, but deeply wounded. The years that followed were not kind. Gas lines stretched for miles. Prices rose. Jobs vanished. Confidence faded. America felt tired. Then came fear from a new direction. News showed masked men, shouting crowds, and burning flags in distant lands. Hostages were taken. Threats were made. The world felt smaller and more dangerous. At home, families locked doors earlier. Trust between people grew thin. The nation wanted strength again. And soon, it would get it. In the 1980s, a new voice rose. It spoke of pride. It spoke of strength. It promised America would feel powerful again. The economy improved for some. Military power grew. The nation stood tall once more. Across the world, America faced its greatest rival. The Cold War reached its final act. Then, almost without warning, the impossible happened. The Soviet Union collapsed. The Cold War ended. America stood alone at the top. Many believed history had chosen a winner. But victory brought new problems. Without a clear rival, the world shifted. Conflicts broke out in smaller places. Old borders failed. Old hatreds returned. America stepped in again and again, believing it could fix what was broken. Sometimes it helped. Sometimes it made things worse. At home, technology exploded. Computers entered homes. The internet connected the world. Information moved faster than truth. And danger moved with it. The sky was clear. People went to work. Children went to school. Then planes struck towers of glass and steel. Smoke poured into the sky. Buildings collapsed. Thousands died. The world watched in horror. September 11th, 2001. America was attacked on its own soil. Fear returned instantly. The nation united in grief and anger. Flags flew everywhere. The call for justice was loud. But fear once again shaped decisions. Wars followed. Surveillance expanded. Freedoms were questioned. Safety came at a price. The wars dragged on. Years passed. Lives were lost. Money vanished into distant deserts and mountains. Victory remained unclear. Back home, people argued. Some believed it was necessary. Others believed it was a mistake. The nation felt divided again. Old wounds reopened. By the end of the early 2000s, America stood at another crossroads. It was still powerful, still rich, still influential, but it was also angry, divided, and unsure. People argued about truth, about history, about what America really stood for. The giant was no longer asleep. It was restless. And what came next, economic collapse, rising anger, and battles over identity and power, would test the nation in ways no enemy ever had. Because the next struggle would not be fought overseas. It would be fought at home. The streets were loud again. People shouted. Signs were raised. Voices shook with anger and fear. America was arguing with itself. Neighbors stopped talking. Families split at dinner tables. Old friends unfollowed each other online. Every issue became a fight. Every debate felt personal. Some said the country was finally facing its past. Others said it was being torn apart. The internet spread ideas faster than truth. Lies moved just as quickly as facts. No one knew who to trust anymore. News channels chose sides. Politicians spoke in hard tones. Every election felt like the last chance to save the nation. America was no longer just divided. It was fractured. And beneath the noise, something darker was growing. Trust once held the country together. Trust in leaders. Trust in elections. Trust in truth itself. That trust began to fade. Scandals broke out one after another. Secret meetings. Hidden deals. Foreign influence. Leaked messages. Each revelation made people more suspicious. Some believed the system was broken. Others believed it was stolen. Courts were questioned. Science was doubted. Even history itself was argued over. What was real anymore? Social media became the new battlefield. Words were weapons. Anger was currency. Fear spread faster than calm. The nation was powerful, but confused. And confusion is dangerous. In 2008, the ground fell out from under millions. Banks collapsed. Jobs disappeared overnight. Homes were lost. Families packed their lives into boxes and walked away. People watched as huge companies were rescued, while ordinary citizens suffered. Anger burned deep. How could a nation this rich let so many fall? Protests rose. Tents filled city parks. Voices demanded fairness. Others warned of chaos. The system survived, but it changed people. Many stopped believing it worked for them. And that belief would shape everything that followed. As years passed, anger replaced hope. People felt ignored, left behind, lied to. New leaders rose by promising simple answers to complex problems. They spoke loudly. They pointed fingers. They claimed enemies were everywhere. Crowds cheered. Others watched in fear. The language of politics hardened. Compromise became weakness. Winning mattered more than truth. America was no longer arguing about policies. It was arguing about reality. Then the world stopped. Streets emptied. Schools closed. Hospitals filled. Fear returned, quiet but heavy. A virus spread across the globe. America struggled. Rules changed daily. Leaders disagreed publicly. People argued over masks, medicine, and science. Trust collapsed even further. Millions lost loved ones. Millions lost jobs. Isolation fed anger. The country did not face the crisis together. It faced it divided. And the damage ran deep. When election season arrived, tension filled the air. Every speech felt dangerous. Every result felt impossible to accept. Votes were cast, results announced, but the losing side refused to accept defeat. Claims spread, courts were pressured, the system itself was questioned. Then, on a cold January day, crowds gathered at the heart of American power. They broke through barriers. Windows shattered. Fear echoed through halls once seen as untouchable. The world watched in disbelief. This was not a foreign invasion. This was Americans fighting Americans. The image shocked the planet. And it raised a terrifying question. If democracy could be shaken this easily, what would survive next? After the chaos, silence followed. Investigations began. Trials followed. Truth came out slowly and painfully. At the same time, old history returned. Statues fell. Stories long ignored were told aloud. Pain buried for centuries demanded attention. Some called it justice. Others called it destruction. But the past could no longer be hidden. America was being forced to look at itself honestly for the first time in generations. And many did not like what they saw. Now, the United States stands at a turning point. It is still powerful, still wealthy, still watched by the world. But power alone is not enough. The nation must decide what it truly stands for. Will it learn from its past, or repeat it? Will fear guide its future, or understanding? Will it remain united, or finally split under its own weight? Because history shows one truth again and again. Great nations do not fall from enemies outside. They fall when they forget who they are. And what comes next, how America chooses its future, will decide not just the fate of one country, but the fate of the world. After the shouting faded, the country felt tired. Not peaceful, not healed, just exhausted. People went back to work. Children returned to school. Life moved forward, but something had changed inside America. Trust did not return easily. Every headline was questioned. Every speech was doubted. Even simple facts were argued over. The nation had survived chaos, but survival was not the same as unity. And beneath the surface, old problems were still waiting. For many Americans, the future felt uneven. Some lived in comfort, surrounded by technology and choice. Others struggled to pay rent, buy food, or afford healthcare. The gap grew wider. Cities sparkled with wealth while rural towns faded. Jobs vanished as machines replaced people. Education decided destiny more than ever before. People asked a painful question: who is America really working for? The answer depended on who you asked. And that answer shaped anger, votes, and belief. Phones became constant companions. Screens replaced conversations. Algorithms decided what people saw, read, and believed. Technology promised connection. Instead, it often delivered division. False stories spread faster than true ones. Fear was shared more than understanding. Outrage kept people watching, clicking, arguing. The digital world began shaping the real one. Elections, opinions, even friendships were influenced by invisible code. America had created powerful tools. Now, it struggled to control them. While America argued at home, the world did not stop moving. New powers rose. Old rivals returned. Global competition grew sharper. Allies wondered if America was still reliable. Enemies tested its strength. The nation that once led with confidence now sent mixed signals. Would it protect democracy or retreat inward? Would it lead or follow? The answer mattered far beyond its borders. Because when America shifts, the world feels it. Nature began to speak louder. Storms grew stronger. Fires burned longer. Floods swallowed towns. Heat broke records. Scientists warned. Evidence stacked up. Some listened. Others denied. The debate was fierce. The cost of action felt high. The cost of inaction felt distant. But the damage was real and growing. America faced a challenge no army could defeat. Time itself was becoming the enemy. Out of struggle, voices rose. Young people marched. They demanded change. They questioned old systems and old leaders. They spoke about fairness, the planet, and the future. Some welcomed them as hope. Others feared them as chaos. But history had seen this before. Every generation challenges the one before it. And sometimes, those challenges change everything. America stands where it has stood many times before. At a crossroads. It can choose fear or courage, division or understanding, power or responsibility. The past shows what happens when voices are ignored, when power goes unchecked, when truth is twisted. The future depends on what lessons are remembered. History does not repeat exactly, but it often rhymes. The United States was never perfect. It was born in struggle, built through conflict, shaped by mistakes and courage alike. Its story is not one of pure good or pure evil. It is a human story of hope and fear, of strength and weakness, of dreams that inspired millions and failures that caused deep pain. The question history now asks is simple but heavy. Can this nation grow without tearing itself apart? The future of the United States has not been written yet. It will not be decided by one leader, or one election, or one moment. It will be shaped by daily choices, by how people treat one another, by whether truth matters more than winning. History is watching, just as it always has. Every great nation reaches a moment when its greatest enemy is no longer outside its borders. It is doubt. It is fear. It is forgetting why the nation began in the first place. The United States has reached that moment again. What happens next will echo for generations. Because the story of America is not finished. It is still being written. And the final chapter depends on what happens now.